All right. Hello, everybody. This is Brent from The Second Look, and I'm talking with Zeshan or Z. How's it going, Zeshan?
Doing great.
Great.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thanks for talking to me and taking the time.
My
I
pleasure.
just wanted to hear your story, hear some of your experiences. We want to share these stories and experiences with other filmmakers who are either in the same boat or want to be in the same boat or used to be in the same boat and now they've moved on, but they still want to hear and they still want to be a part of this kind of filmmaking community that we're trying to build at the Second Look. So just want to hear from you. We can start with kind of the beginning. What got you into filmmaking in the first place?
Um, I started in the theater, and I was an actor in the theater in New York City, and I noticed a lot of stuff that I auditioned for was, very typecast, and I just didn't see myself as those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I started writing my own stuff and writing my own plays, and then I eventually put one on in the East Village, and got some people to help me. I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any money,
Mm-hmm.
and got some actors that were hungry, that were also in the same boat as me, and they wanted to be a part of something because they weren't also getting picked to do Romeo Juliet or Shakespeare.
Right.
And by the way, this is like 10 almost 10, 15 years ago. The things have changed a lot since then, which
Mm-hmm.
is great.
Mm-hmm.
But so that kind of led me into writing, which led me to writing a short film, then doing writing a web show, and I just looked at it like a way of an expression.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, it wasn't for me as a business. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, I
Right.
wanna I wanna make something. I
Mm-hmm.
see this story in my heart. I feel passionate about it. Let me just make it. So
Yep.
that's how I got started in it.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And it was yeah, and it, when I started, I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? I just knew pictures and knew visuals,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I could find the guy that had a camera and he knew how to do that, and or this person knew how to do the lighting, and
Mm-hmm.
I just always kind of had the vision, but I didn't even know the lingo, to be honest with you, in the beginning.
Wow.
you know.
No,
Yeah.
that's honestly, I mean, I would have said this before, but you already confirmed it. Like you don't need to know the technicals. You don't need to be able to speak film language. You don't have to be an expert. Maybe you need to find those people that do. But yeah, if you have that vision and if you can communicate that vision with people you can work with, that's how things get done all the time. So I mean, congratulations the on having the vision and pursuing it, regardless of your education or your previous knowledge of this entire medium. It's really encouraging. Um, and I think what you said about uh, not finding the things you're looking for as an actor, or and this could be the same for any creative person, but as an actor, you're dependent on other people hiring you. You're dependent on other people's visions or other people's projects, um, and that all it takes is to carve out your own space and make something that you can just do yourself. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. Um, um, I watched your short film Stereotypes, and I thought it was great. I do when you say you have a vision, I could see that. I think it really does have a perspective, a POV, an attitude, a voice. So if was that a pretty early project for you?
That was a project that I did after I did a few projects with people that I had worked with, and things didn't we didn't see eye to eye,
Mm,
and that was like the first project where I kind of took ownership of it, and and really just, okay, this is what I want to say,
Mhm. Mhm.
and this is what I want to say to a lot of my actor friends that were complaining about the same stuff,
Mhm.
and my actor friends weren't all people of color. They were women. They were even, Caucasians that were complaining that, and I was like, well, let's make a movie. I used to say to them, like, let's go make our own stuff,
Right. Right.
and in the movie, it's like, they're like, nah, it's too hard, it's more than,
Yeah.
it's just not a movie, and me, I was like, no, it's not. Just like, let's just go do it. It'll be fun, and then that's kind of how, like, that story came out of
Mhm.
me, and a lot of those things happened to me, like, I went to go see this big casting director in Manhattan, and someone had linked me with him, and he had made a lot of careers, and I was literally there for like 2 minutes. I didn't even do a monologue. He just wanted to meet me, and I had to
Mhm.
give him like $150,
Mhm.
and a lot of people would tell me, "Oh, you gotta pay to, you gotta pay to play, you gotta pay to, meet people," and I just didn't believe in that. I did it, but I didn't believe in it. I didn't
Yeah.
think that was the way.
Right.
So I kind of put that in there, and yeah. So I'm a big component, like, to break the stereotype,
Mhm.
go step out of the box,
Mhm.
and I believe in that in everything,
Mhm.
in any field,
Right.
put your own flavor on it, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
But thank
Yeah.
you for watching that. I appreciate that.
Of course. No, it was great. I was curious as I was watching because I knew you had started as an actor, from your bio that you sent me. So I was very curious watching like how autobiographical it was, um, and I think that's I think especially for a filmmaker, who's trying to express their own personal story. I think it's a good idea to lean into your own experiences to kind of express what's happened because when you're a storyteller, I guess in any medium, but mostly really in film, you need a perspective, you need a point of view, you need a voice, to communicate something. And what better experience do you have than your own to get that across? So I think it's a good lesson for filmmakers to I guess not be afraid to tell their own story. I think
Hmm.
it's a great it's a great especially when you're just learning or when you're having trouble coming up with some sort of fiction. You're trying to write something, you're trying to think outside the box, and you're just struggling with that. To fall back on your own story, your own experiences, let those guide you. And all of a sudden, you have plenty to say, and you have a perspective, and you have um, that worldview that I think people will naturally gravitate towards. I'm not from New York, but um, I could feel in the very essence of this movie that you are, and that this is coming from someone who knows New York, and like this is part of their personality. And so it wasn't fake. It was fully 100% real. And I think that's really important, when you're starting out, to be that, to be able to stand out as yourself. I think that's great.
Yeah, and that wasn't planned. It just happened, which is
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of film, I
Mm-hmm.
think,
Mm-hmm.
because you have like a certain plan in your mind, and you kind of have to let it go when you start making the film.
Right.
And then when you get into the editing, for me, most of the times when I'm like start editing something, I'm like, man, this is not how I planned it.
Yeah.
Now I have to kind of tell the story,
Yep. Yep.
and I had to do that with this film. I had to make those chapters,
Mm.
and I could do it with this film. Maybe I couldn't do it with another film, but I could do this with this film because the city kind of lends itself to it. The environment kind of lends itself to it, so I
Mm-hmm.
can make it kind of jazzy and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that wasn't figured out, and I think that's important.
Mm.
That when you're making film, like right now, I'm making a film, and I don't have anything figured out. and I want to figure it out, and it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But I have to remind myself, well, you didn't figure stereotypes out. You figured that out later,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, but just keep doing it and just keep taking that one step towards completion or whatever, you know?
For sure. Oh, for sure. Uh, I think everybody I would has that experience almost all the time. 90% of the time, you are where you start and where you end up are two different places, and you have to make peace with that as soon as you realize, like, you had that realization, like, uh-oh, like, this isn't what exactly I had planned. I need to adjust. So uh just going into a project knowing you're going to have to compromise somewhere, and to not be so precious with what you wanted, and embrace what you got and what you can get, and try to make the best of it. And if you listen to interviews with the biggest filmmakers, even with a massive budget, they're having to deal with that same problem all the time on set. They're always, maybe they're smaller, maybe maybe on the day they have a problem and they have to maybe scrap that shot or get rid of that scene. But maybe they also have a budget to go back and do a pickup shoot or something. They have more resources, but the process that they're going through and you're going through are the same. Um, there's so many variables outside of, like, doing an animated film by yourself, where you have complete control. You're gonna have to deal with the compromise, and I think that's a really important lesson. Um, uh, just one more question about stereotypes. I thought this was a really interesting choice. The film starts with a montage and voiceover about what people think New York is, and kind of the outside perspective of New York, and all those shots are in color, and then you say, well, I'm going to show you what my New York is, and then it switches to black and white. Um, Tell me, I think it's a really good, interesting choice, but I want to hear from you, like, kind of what prompted that.
It was just a lot of it was technical stuff. It was lighting, you know, and I decided to change it right in the beginning. Like just like once he starts talking and it's his story, just go black and white. He doesn't see color. He just sees New York as it is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the stuff that I was showing was stuff that was as an actor. I spent a lot of time in Starbucks. It's like cold. You walk out of theater rehearsal in Times Square, and you're just trying to get warm
Right.
and maybe
Right.
maybe read something, maybe go over your lines, something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you just don't want to go back to your like crappy apartment. You're there all the time, so it was
Right.
like so it was like stuff like that. Street food is like cheap or used to be cheap, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like filling and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it was like it was more of a technical thing, but it also was like also like hey, New York, like the New York I grew up with, we don't see color, we don't see black and white, we just see, hey, you're from New York, you're
Right.
just
Right. Right.
and if you're cool, that's all that matters. And even
Yeah.
if you're not from New York, if you're cool, you're cool. That's all that matters.
Right.
You know?
No, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. I think New York is such a immediately recognizable city, and I just liked the idea that, um, the, maybe, and well, to me, especially as the story went on, it was a bit more clear, like, maybe New York as a concept, as a kind of a wonderland for actors and for people coming to New York, and they think they're optimistic, and they think their dreams are going to happen there, and they're going to make it big, especially as a struggling actor. Um,
Mm.
but then the reality of how tough it is, and suddenly that, you're demythologizing New York. You're taking the color out. It's a little bit more gritty, a little bit more, like, stark. the reality of your life, and what you're trying to achieve isn't so optimistic, maybe, or you're trying to maintain that optimism. So I just think the color choice and the black and white, yeah, it's just lent a lot of interesting texture to the story and your character. So that's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It
All
was
right.
definitely a labor of. It was definitely like a labor of love,
Mm-hmm.
and I, you know, I don't try to repeat things, but like whatever that vibration and rhythm I was on with that film,
Mm-hmm.
even like years later now, I gotta remind myself like you gotta stay with that vibe
Mm-hmm.
because that was good. It was pure. It was rich.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All this other stuff, will fall into place. Just
Mm-hmm.
stay true to that art form.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So it took me a lot of years to realize that.
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I think whenever I complete something, whenever I finish something, is very satisfying. And that idea, I think maybe you can relate. You made the thing. It took forever, but you made it. It's complete, and sounds like you had a good experience doing it. So, yeah, using those past projects and motivation, might the project you're working on now might be totally different, but yeah, kind of tapping into that, like you said, that rhythm. I think that's good advice. um what when you were telling me about this new idea that you're working on now. You're maybe having some trouble maybe developing it. Tell me more about what's going on with this new idea.
New idea is a different thing I'm kind of exercising, experimenting with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a noir film.
Okay.
It's a LA noir film. I love noir. I love LA, how it looks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in LA for 7 years. I live in West Hollywood, and I just I want to make an LA film.
Yeah.
I want to have that in my history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's a little different than Stereotypes. It has to do with crime and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's like a new
Mm-hmm.
place for me to play with.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the discovery of things,
Yeah.
and I'm not getting things right away. And I think last year I was really frustrated, and then I just said, forget it. I'm not gonna even like think about this stuff. And one day, I think it was in May, I sat down, and in 2 weeks I wrote the first draft. I
That's
just
awesome.
banged it out. My
Yeah.
wife was like, what are you I was like, I'm on a roll. And it just came out.
Yeah. Right.
And then I said, oh, let me read it. Does this even make sense? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I read it, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, it needs some
Mm-hmm.
work, but it's not bad.
Mm-hmm.
As my wife read it, she's like, okay, that's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a new thing. I'm actually trying to make it on my phone. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible,
Sure.
and try to make it creative, like use my creativity without trying to use money. You know, if I can use it, if I could shoot it here, make it look like just like think outside the box,
Yep.
and just make a movie to put it out there just to see, just to entertain people. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Sure.
And not to prove a point or anything, but and the social commentary is really of the film is really about redemption.
Mm-hmm.
um, like a person that's maybe feels like they're not worthy of
Mm-hmm.
certain things they've done in their past, but they
Mm-hmm.
can they can redeem themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I believe that in anything, like in sports, you could have a bad game, and people and the media will destroy you, and then the next day you could drop 50 points and you're everybody's hero.
Right. Right.
And I think the same thing in Hollywood. You could have a bad 5 years of movies, and
Mm-hmm.
then the actor makes one great movie, and the next thing he's making like all the studio movies.
Yep. Yep.
And so and I believe that in politics too. I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like maybe they dropped the ball on things. well, I don't care what side you're on. I'm rooting for you because it's your job to serve people,
Right.
But I don't want to condemn you. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's a story for everybody, really.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah. So I don't have a team or anything because I'm like still feel like I'm new in LA and I'm making new connections
Hmm.
and it's fun. It's exciting meeting people at coffee shops randomly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's fun. That was fun for me about Stereotypes was like every one of those actors in my film I did theater with,
Mm.
or I worked on like a short film with, or did something with them,
Right. Right.
And so like right now I'm trying to do that here,
Hmm. Hmm.
where if I can meet somebody and we have a connection, like I love to use you, you
Sure.
know.
Sure. That's no, that's awesome. That's I think you're in the right place. Because just like New York, everybody here has the same or a very similar goal and pursuit, to make connections, to hook up with people that they can work with, that they align with creatively. Um, there's everybody. There's writers, there's editors, there's DPs. Like your whole crew is out here, kind of waiting, and you just got to find them. But it's easier said than done, right? Networking is a difficult pursuit. It's especially, I don't know about you. I'm kind of introverted, so it's harder for me to go out into the public and just meet people. Um, I'll tell you this story though, that I was driving for Lyft for a couple months, back, almost 10 years ago, um, just as a job. But it was also, I discovered pretty quickly people getting into my car. We'd start talking, and because of the area, because of where we're at, like there's so many people that are actors, that are writers, that are, and I made a few connections. I met a woman who became like my writing partner for a few years, just as she was my
Lots.
ride. We started talking. She's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm not here. I'm trying to write. I'm trying to do all this stuff." She's like, "Oh, really?" Like she was a former model, turned actress, like yourself, wanting to write material for herself, because she's struggling with auditions and such. She's like, "Would you want to work on something?" And yeah, exchanged information. And we literally spent 3 years or so like writing together. And that's just how easy it was. You're in the right place, the right time. You meet somebody, and that's how these connections are made. So I think, you're doing the right thing, uh, to make that happen for yourself. Yeah, I think, and I want to go back. You said something about, you have this idea. It's in your head. It's living there. You're thinking about it. You're maybe working on it, writing it here and there, but then you hit a point where it doesn't work, and you hit a wall, and then all of a sudden, bam, a switch is flipped, and it comes out of you. I think that's a great story. I think it's a pretty common occurrence. Creativity is not a switch that you can literally just turn on and off when you want it. Sometimes it gets flipped without you. Sometimes you're sitting there trying to turn it on and it won't work. Um, so being patient with yourself and with your ideas, and um,
Hmm.
waiting for that creative spark to come, because it does eventually. And it's great that you were able to capture it, to take advantage of it, that your wife could let you, stay out of your way, and make sure that you can kind of get it out, because then it's out, and now you have something to concrete to work on, which is great.
Yeah, and that's like the fun part. Like once you get it out, like you could start
Yeah.
molding it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But without that, it's just in your head or on your phone and notes, and
Yeah.
and it gives you like a sense of accomplishment too. Like, oh man, I just wrote like 120 pages.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I potentially have a movie here,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it gets me excited. You know. Yeah, it was cool, but you know, as today I was talking to my wife because I have several ideas I want to make,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, you know, I wrote that in 2 weeks. I can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that again. I can write that first draft again,
Yep.
and for that next film,
Yep.
like I don't need to like wait, you know, because I did that with a few scripts. Like it took me forever to write them,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it was frustrating because I just wanted to get it done,
Yeah.
and I couldn't force the creativity,
Right.
you
Right.
know. But also the story changed, you know, like
Yeah.
you probably know this. Like it started out as one thing, and then it ended up being another thing,
Yep. Yes.
and that's really cool too, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. The those discoveries along the way that can, to be honest, they can, you find yourself, maybe you're not even conscious of it, but you're writing, you're going this way, but as you're writing slowly it's turning in this other direction, and you're like, I didn't want to go in that direction. So sometimes you either have to kind of bring it back, reorient yourself, and go in the direction you want to go in, or like you're saying, um, there's so many good things that can come out of that little tangent that you went on. A new idea comes in that you never thought of, that all of a sudden just came out organically. So to I guess like we were saying before about anticipating compromise, and then embracing new ideas. um don't get frustrated that it was going off in this different direction, because that's not where you wanted it to go. So many, for myself and people I've talked to, and also these big time screenwriters and filmmakers, they're talking all the time about how it started here but it went over here and I followed it, and kind of following the idea rather than trying to kind of control it, how you think it might be best. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and you gotta be open to that.
Yeah, yeah, and it takes a lot of working on things, like working on your craft. And I think my acting helps my writing,
Mm,
like like spending time doing theater and realizing how on point you have to be, and you're just a small piece of the bigger production. You know, it's not really about you. It's about like the story, the characters, you know. And so that I kind of bring that kind of flavor to my writing and my
mm.
filmmaking. Like, okay, this is not about me. Even though I'm writing stuff for myself, it's not really about me. It's about the story. And if you walk away watching Stereotypes, I hope that you get hope. You know,
Right.
you get a sense of hope, and then that's kind of like been my thing lately. Like, okay, I write stories of hope. That's what I'm gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it might be, neo noir, whatever. It's gonna be a sense of hope in there, you know, and that
Yeah,
helps me write. That helps me write, you know,
that's
better,
interesting.
I guess. Or yeah,
Yeah, no, that's great. Because no matter what, you have that anchor of an idea, that kernel, that light, whatever the stories, happening with the characters, whatever's, at the whatever changes happen during the process, you can always step back and be like, am I at least pointing to hope? Am I at least finding myself towards that direction? I think having like an anchor like that is great. Uh, yeah, because you can never. Well, this might be too much, but I was going to say you would never not know what to do, or you would never not know where to go, because you have an end result, and so at least you have that guiding you. Where if you're just completely kind of rudderless, you're just kind of floating. You don't have a direction. That can be really tough. But at least if you have that one little thing you're aiming towards at all times, that's good.
yeah, and it's like, you know, I think just making it simple, you know, like um, making things very clear and
Hmm.
simple for yourself is important, you know.
Right.
And and it just helps. It helps with everything really, and it won't get you frustrated. Like if it's not about if hope is your agenda in the story, and it starts being something else, then that's easy to fix. I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Uh, e- Simplicity. I love that you said that, because that is such great advice, um, especially for people who are trying to put something together for themselves. Where the motivation and the progress starts and ends with you. It's your thing. You have to keep it moving, right? Simplicity is really important, because um, why would you make it harder for yourself? Why complicate things? Because it's already difficult enough. So keep it simple. Um, there's a practical element to it, where it's like, you want to shoot in 7 different locations, or can you shoot it in one? Like, can you simplify the idea so that it's actually practical and doable? It's nice to imagine a story that has 7 different locations, but can you actually shoot in 7 locations? Do you have the time, the budget, the resources? Or do you have just that one apartment? And can you do it all there? Can you dress the living room to be one set? Can you turn this bathroom into a nightclub bathroom? Can you
yeah,
make different locations with your one location? That's that simplicity requiring creativity, because simple by itself is okay. But what you're saying about,
yeah. We shot Stereotypes in our apartment. We had like the front, we had the rooftop, we
mm-hmm,
had the dining room. Um, you know, we shot at Astoria Park, the boxing scene with
uh-huh,
so we just used what we had.
yeah,
No permits, nothing.
yeah,
Just made it work.
mm-hmm,
And I had a few people come up to me and they asked me how much I spent on it. Like they asked me if I spent like 10, 15, 20 grand on it, because
yeah.
I was hearing like people in the neighborhood making 20 grand short films. And I was like, I spent maybe $500. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right,
Like, and that was just like literally like on food,
right,
like,
right. No, that's
and like that was it. And yeah, it was. And I wanted to say this. We were talking about keeping things simple. I don't know who said it, but I love this quote, and I always remember this quote. The highest form of sophistication is simplicity.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard that.
No, but I love it. That's perfect. Because, yeah, things don't need to be complicated. Uh, in any aspect of your life, but especially in creativity, um, because there's so many obstacles in your way already. You know, before you even set pen to paper, you've got obstacles. You have time constraints. You have a job. You have a family, right? There's a money issue. Maybe there's an equipment issue. So there's already obstacles in your way, no matter what. So yeah, keeping the idea simple, keeping the production simple, make it easier on yourself, especially at the beginning. And then the simpler it is, the more likely you'll finish it. Because what we are saying before about completing something, having something finished, is such a great feeling, and it's great motivation. And so give yourself a softball project, like a something that you can just take your time with, but complete it, and make the next one a little bit more complicated. So you can, as you go along, make it harder for yourself. But no, simplicity, that's the name of the game for sure.
Mm-hmm.
um so I'm also very curious about challenges that you may have had, and how you overcame them. So I guess we can talk about Stereotypes still. Like, what was the hardest part of putting that film together?
I think it was, when you're like are not a filmmaker, and then all of a sudden you decide to make one,
Mm-hmm.
people just don't take you seriously,
Mm.
and so, some of the people were great, and not that some people were bad, but they just weren't getting what I was doing,
Mm.
or they didn't see the vision, and it's okay. That's fine. It's not their job to see that.
Right.
And I would let that affect me,
Mm.
I would let that affect me, because I do care about people, and I do like, empathize with people, and so I just would like let that affect me, and maybe make me feel like I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't, so that was kind of the challenges of the self belief,
Yeah.
when you are taking a shot, and you're nobody around you is doing it that looks like you. My family's from Pakistan. I was born and raised here, and when I was in New York, there wasn't a lot, any really Pakistani filmmakers independent,
Right.
you know, or even black. I didn't see any black ones either, because I had a lot of African American friends and stuff like that. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't, a lot of them weren't doing it either. This just started a few years ago, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always like, okay, people are saying stuff, and I would just listen to them, and I would just say to anybody that's listening to this, do not listen to anybody.
Mm.
Listen to yourself. If you believe in it, if you
Mm-hmm.
see it,
Mm-hmm.
just do it. And I did it. I kind of pussyfooted around with certain things. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I didn't, but
Mm-hmm.
that was a learning thing for me.
Right. Right.
And the fact that I'm here, in Hollywood and LA, and I'm still doing this, pursuing this,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, somehow I'm here. I didn't even plan it, like,
Yeah.
you know, and it just happened
Yeah.
with the wife and kid. Like, to me, that's like, okay, something out there is pushing me to this,
Right.
So
Right.
keep following it,
Right.
and stay in it. And so yeah, so that was some of the challenges that I dealt with. I don't think I dealt with any challenges when it came to, um, money or anything like that, because I didn't even think about, spending like all this money doing
Yeah.
stuff. It wasn't even in my mind.
Right.
I didn't have any challenges with story or anything, because like I felt like I could tell a story. You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's your story.
And
Yeah.
so, so I could tell a story. Like, if I could tell a story to my friends, I felt like I could write it down.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So like, so that wasn't it. But that was a challenge, was the self belief
Yeah.
and the people that are around. And I think that's like one of the hardest things for people to realize, that there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna doubt you. Do not listen to them.
Yeah.
Just keep doing your thing.
Right.
We all want to see your movie.
Right.
And that's what Stereotypes is about.
Mm.
Like, it's like, hey, go get yours. Go follow your dream.
Yeah. That's great. That's so great.
Yeah.
James Cameron has a quote that I adore. I don't have it verbatim. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but you get the idea. He said something like, "Don't doubt yourself, because everyone else is going to do that for you." Like, everyone along the way, either you're actors who maybe aren't 100% confident in a first-time director, let's say, or anybody who a financier, who's you're trying to convince to fund your film, let's say. There's so many people, and rightly so. Like, who filmmaking is a risky endeavor, especially when there's money involved, and when there's people's careers involved. An actor who is trying to pursue their own career, so they want to make sure that they're doing good projects, and they don't want to they don't want to just join any film because they're not sure about the filmmaker's abilities, because they're looking out for themselves. So they have their own thing. So it's maybe not personal against you, but
No.
everyone's trying to do their thing, and they want to protect their career and make sure they're making the right choices and stuff. But it still stands. Like, everyone's going to doubt you. So don't doubt yourself. Like, that you're the last person who you need to be against you, because there's going to be everyone else is going to be in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other side of that is that there's people that, I have friends that watch that movie when they're feeling discouraged. And or I have friends that reach out to me and say, "Hey, I have an actor friend." And I shared my movie your movie with them.
Mm,
And they absolutely got encouraged.
right. Right.
That's the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not a millions of people. It's a short film, but
Right. Yeah.
at least I did the job. I did the job, which
Yeah.
was that.
Yeah. I
So
yeah. I'm not surprised, because again, I watched when watching it, I felt like I was hearing the truth. Like I felt like someone was expressing something very real, and very earnest. Um, there's not there's not much th- there's no artificiality or art. You're not pretending like this is a real story, and I felt that for sure.
cool.
Um, so I'm very happy to hear that's happened, and that the end result that came through for you, and that when people watch it, they can pick that up. That's great. Um, I'm curious, because maybe for Stereotypes, you were relatively new. You said you had done a couple of things before, but how do you approach collaboration? How do you what's your ideal working relationship with, like, your DP, let's say, if you're directing?
It's always been great. It's always been great because it's like, what do you feel, and it's all about feeling for me. Like,
Mm,
what do you feel in the scene? This is the scene. Okay, well, I see this, I see this. Okay, let's try it.
mm-hmm.
Okay, and if it doesn't work, let's try, like, let me put in my 2 cents. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's always a collaboration. And even with actors, like, oh, this line's not hitting. This line's not hitting. Okay, let's change it. Let's try something else.
Right. Right.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, I was just watching Rocky, the commentary on the Rocky film,
Mm,
like an old DVD,
yeah.
and I think it was John Adelson was talking, the director of the film,
Yeah.
and he directed Karate Kid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the way he was talking, everything was collaborative.
Mm,
Like, he would tell Sylvester Stallone something, and they would go back to the drawing board, work it out, and then, okay, that worked.
mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought, man, for such a phenomenal, legendary film, it wasn't like my way or the highway.
Yeah. Right.
It was a team effort,
Yes. Yes.
and that's maybe why that movie's great, because you can see even the acting, the actors, the characters. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, it's about Rocky, but there's like this great thing about Paulo. There's this great thing about Paulie. There's a great thing about Adrian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Um, yeah, like collaboration. Especially if it's your project, right? It's your idea, you're the director, it's your script, your vision, and you're asking a bunch of people outside of that to help you, to participate, to be a part of it, to make it happen. They might be motivated, if it's an actor, let's say, or any crew member, like a DP, who wants, their motivation is to do a good job, but then they also want to do a good job so they can put that clip on their reel, so they can get another job. So they have their own personal motivations to be a part of your project, but I don't think that's enough. I think I agree with what you're saying. Like, you need people to invest in the project, kind of comprehensively. They
Yeah,
need to invest themselves, because that's when everyone does their best work. And how you get them to invest is you give them ownership. You give it to them and let them come up with it, because now it's their idea for that line or for that shot, and now they're part of
Mhm.
it. And now it's they're just as motivated to do a good job on that piece as you were. And that's how you get people kind of rallied up. That's great.
Yeah. I made a feature. I made an indie feature film, like an art house film.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember collaborating with the musician, the person that did the score for my film.
Yeah.
And I had give him like notes. This is what I'm looking for. I even gave him some samples, and he came back with something out of left field. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, hey, I said to him, I said, Taylor, this is not it. Like let's talk about this. This is what I'm. We spent a couple hours talking about it, and this is what I'm thinking. This is the feeling behind it. Literally a day later, he came back with exactly the feeling that I was talking.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't happen right away.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so it was like, it was really good, and it was a very healthy like conversation. It wasn't like you didn't do it, it wasn't like
Right.
like that. It was like, listen, let's talk about this.
Right.
And he gave me a beautiful original score. He was looking to get into scoring films.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was going to some film school I'm sorry, he was going to some music school in New York City, and he just wanted it on his resume.
Yep. Right.
And he gave me something great, and it was
Mm-hmm.
such a beautiful collaborative effort. I actually had reached out to him a couple of days ago because I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years,
Mm.
and it was just like, oh man, such a fun collaborative effort. I love that.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I love about film is
Yeah.
like the team aspect of it.
Right. Right. Totally. It's fun to sit at home and be in your head and write a script, and it's just you, and I love that. But the energy that I get from working with somebody else, bouncing ideas off each other, kind of brainstorming together, coming up with a better idea, because the oftentimes I feel like it's the sum is greater than its parts. Like your idea plus their idea is like times three. And yeah, that process is really satisfying. And well, it's satisfying, but you have to be up for it. You have to be prepared for it, because it's not easy. Collaborating with anybody else on anything, you have to separate yourself a little bit. You have to not be so precious. You have to be open, in a relationship, in a romantic relationship, but in a creative partnership as well. And that's a special skill that you kind of need to work on if you don't have it innately in you.
Yeah, and I've worked on other people's films. Like, even though I do make my own stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
still like to go out and audition, and I've worked with directors that are not like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I come in with that collaborative energy, and they're like, "Whoa, what are you doing?"
Right.
Like, and it's, to me, it's like, dude, it's just gonna make the project better. And I'm not trying to hijack it,
Right. Right.
but it's just like, dude, this is gonna make it better, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to see both sides of it, and I could play both sides of it. Like, okay, you don't want me to add anything, fine. You want
Right.
me to say the lines as is, fine,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole group of collaborators who are of sorry, there's a whole group of filmmakers who aren't really into the collaboration thing. They have their thing and they want to do it that way. Usually at that point you kind of would have to be the director, but even actors and DPs and composers, they'll walk off a project because you're not satisfying what they have in mind, or the whole creative differences problem that people have. Sometimes, sure, just personalities, or there's something going wrong and it's just not going to work. Even if you're open to the collaboration, it just won't work. But your chances definitely increase if you're closed off to someone else's input, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I worked in the theater, and it was very collaborative, and
Mm,
anything I worked on was super, very like family, and it was always a beautiful experience.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I always cherish those times, my early life, struggling, actor doing theater and some dingy theater, but it was like the experience was so rich.
Yeah.
you kind of look past all that stuff, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
I always look for that, like the raw, like give me raw,
Mm-hmm.
give me something, you know, not polished, so we
Yeah.
can polish it together, I guess, you
Yeah.
know.
I like that. That's good. That's good.
Do you mind if I just take a second to plug the phone in?
Sure.
My
Sure.
phone. Yeah, give me a second. Can you still hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. We're kind of wrapping it up here. One last question is kind of more of a fun one, hopefully. But tell me about your favorite movie of all time and why you like it.
That's a tough one.
You can choose a couple if you want.
Okay. I'm gonna pick I'm gonna pick two different movies. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick Amadeus,
Okay.
and I love Amadeus because I just love the acting. The like as an actor, like
Uh
I would have loved to play anybody in that.
huh.
You know,
Yeah.
especially Mozart. And I think the other one would be I love Rocky,
Mm,
and, and I love Rocky because it had such an impression on me as a kid. You know, to like fight and go the distance, and then learning about the struggles that Sylvester Stallone went through as an artist.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to me, that's like um, that's such an important story in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and it still resonates. You know,
Totally.
yeah,
How many? I mean, it's amazing, right? The parallels between Stallone's story as a struggling writer and actor, and and then the story itself, the Rocky story itself, and how those things mirror each other. I mean, it seems, I don't know, very much like you and your story in Stereotypes. Like it's that kind of connection there between what you're going through as a person and how you can translate that into a story that resonates. I think you captured that as well.
yeah, and like he's a very inspirational person.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not using your art to do something positive with it, you know, I think to me that's very important.
Yeah.
You're given a gift like yourself. You're given a gift. You're doing something great with it right now with the second look. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a beautiful thing,
Mm.
and
Thank you.
yeah, and it's like do something. Think about that. Think. And maybe I notice when I'm more inward, thinking about myself, the creativity is just not there
Mm. Mm.
for me,
Yep.
but once I start like, okay, what is this about? What am I trying to say,
Yeah.
to the audience,
Right.
even if it's one person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then that takes the focus off myself,
Mm. Interesting. That's great.
yeah.
Okay, last question. Um, Knowing what you know now, having gone through everything you've gone through, you have the ability to go back and talk to yourself when before at the beginning. What advice do you give yourself on day one?
Just do it. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Just don't overthink it and just keep doing it.
Yeah.
I don't have any regrets because I believe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in my life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to look back. But
Right.
today I can start fresh. Today I can start new,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that I learned is just tools in my tool shed that I can use now.
Right. Right.
And I could just start over.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
Stereotypes, great experience, but it's done.
Right.
I can
What's
recreate
next?
myself at any
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And there's a new generation of filmmakers it's just a beautiful thing. Like the stuff I see on TikTok, I see
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff you repost. It
Mm-hmm.
pops up in my feed, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, this guy's phenomenal,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, or this girl is phenomenal, and it
Mm-hmm.
just gets me excited.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You know, so that's the advice I would give. Just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the advice I give to myself right now. You know,
For sure. No, I love what you said about um, what you've gone through, no regrets. Everything that you've learned is now a tool that you can access and use going forward. I think it's really important to proceed with that mindset because uh, when there's no mistakes, when you don't let something that maybe didn't work or you didn't enjoy it, kind of holds you back. But everything that you do is going to help you in some way down the line, whichever project it is, whoever the people you meet, that it will all add up to something, and you'll be able to pull from it in ways that you can't even expect. So take every job, say yes, be present, participate, um, even
yeah,
if you don't.
and own your
Yeah.
and I would say own your story.
Mm,
You
that's
know,
good.
whatever your personal story is that you're going through, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you came from.
Yeah.
That's your story. That's your like testimony that,
Yeah.
you know, own it. And I for a lot of time was frustrated, frustrated with my story.
Mm,
You know, I didn't have all the, I didn't have all the support from the back, you know what I mean? I
yeah.
didn't have that,
Right.
and but something was putting me on this path,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm still doing it. So own your story. Like it doesn't matter how old you are, and give yourself some grace.
Well said.
Give a pat on give a pat yourself. Hey, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, that's lovely. That's great. Um, Zeshan, thank you so much for your time. Um,
Yeah, my pleasure.
yeah, it was a great conversation. I wish you all the best. If people,
Thank
we're gonna give people your contact information if you have any links you want to add. So if you're interested to get in touch or watch some of Zeshan's stuff, we'll have those links for you in the descriptions. Thank you, Zeshan. Have a great night.
you too. Thank you.